What's up, YouTube? We are going over what to look for in a lowrider, things to watch for. I've seen a lot of people getting taken advantage of here in the last little while, and people saying that their stuff was built right and done right and this, that, and other. And I gotta be honest with you, I've seen some stuff that kind of angered me a little bit. So I figured I would go ahead and put this video together and show you kind of what to look for. That way you don't make the mistake of buying something that hasn't been either done correctly or has been done, you know, kind of cutting corners and things like that. So we've got my son's 95 Fleetwood right here. Just to start from front to back, you can look at your control arms, your upper control arms. Like these, obviously everything's kind of dirty, but these, if your control arms are just hacked up, they're the factory ones that have been hacked up, then that obviously is not a very strong one. They're going to need to be redone. So these have been completely redone, reinforced, and you know, made very strong. Your lower control arms, which is kind of hard to see, the pockets have been dropped as well and reinforced as well. These right here on this side, come on this side, you've got chains. The chains are here to prevent, if the ball joint does break, it prevents the lower control arm from flying out and having the wheel go up underneath there. You don't have to have the chains, but you know, I do suggest them. All right, so now moving on to the back. Sometimes on the body, if there's not any reinforcement, you'll notice, especially like with G bodies, Cutlasses, Monte Carlos, things of that nature, also Impalas with the X frame, you'll notice that behind the window in the back, there will be stress cracks on the body, sometimes right in here. If you notice that any of these areas, let's just say from here to here on the back, if you notice a stress crack or something like that anywhere along here, that would be a dead giveaway that the car has been just manhandled, and it wasn't done correctly, or it's just been a hydraulic car for a very long period of time with no reinforcement. So looking at the reinforcement, so like right here, these are the arches. You can see that a plate has been welded on here. You'll see just like that. And in addition to that, you'll notice you've got upper and lower adjustable arms. So you'll notice that they look like this, okay? Your factory ones are more squared off or like a U shape, right? And if you look up underneath here, there's a bridge. Now this bridge was done a little while ago, but anyway, the bridge, that's a bridge. If your spring perches are what was used in order to put your cylinders through, those spring perches are not strong enough for the long-term hydraulic use. It's okay for a little while, but you really should have a bridge. The bridge not only supports the weight of the car, but it creates an additional structure to connect the two frames together, or two parts of the frame together, so it kind of helps. All right, so looking up underneath, you've got your rear end, and it's been reinforced. So if it has been reinforced, which I'll get underneath there, hopefully the car doesn't crush me. If the reinforcement should be something like this, some sort of a plate of some kind reinforcing, okay? Okay, when it comes to your setup in your trunk, you want to look for your welds. Is it welded to the floor, or is it welded to the actual frame? So is it cut through the sheet metal and then connects to the actual frame? That is the correct way of doing it. That's the more structural way of doing it. So you just want to look in your trunk, look in the trunk, and see if the battery rack, which is where the batteries sit, as well as your pump rack, you want to see if it has actually been welded to the frame. Now on this setup, you can't exactly see it because it's all in here. Some setups are like that. But if you can see it, what you want to look for is it has been welded to the actual frame. Now, where it gets tricky is when you do weld it to the frame, the correct way is to try and weld as much as possible all the way around onto the frame. Now, I have seen some setups where it has been connected to the frame, but it's only been kind of spot welded to the frame, which isn't sufficient. It's not really enough, and it will probably break out eventually. So be looking for the welds that are fully welded around, or at least substantial welding, sufficient welding to the actual frame. All right, so the next thing you want to do is look in the trunk, and you want to look at your batteries and all your connections, all your terminals. Is there battery acid? Is there, you know, corrosion, things like that on the cables, on the batteries, on the setup, anywhere. Also, you want to check and see if you have sufficient grounding. And what I mean by that is if they're using just like a jumper cable in to connect to a ground, that's not sufficient as far as a ground. You'll want to have a quick disconnect, something like this, to where it goes in and just locks into place just like that. Now the next thing is your pumps and everything connected to the pumps. You want to look at the pumps, see if you see any battery acid or anything, you know, on them, or if there's leaks, if you see anything like that. Granted, most of your stuff with hydraulics are pretty easy to you know, maintenance and correct, but you want to know this stuff going into it. Your major stuff, like your framework, your body, is the body damaged? A lot of that stuff is very hard to reverse, but this stuff, this maintenance type of stuff, is easy to fix. So as long as most of your other stuff is done properly, even if the trunk looks like complete crap, you can easily clean it up, make it look good. You want to look at your solenoids, where they are connected. Are they connected directly to bare metal? How do they look? Are they clean? You want to look at all those different aspects. You also want to look and see if there are battery hold downs. These are considered battery hold downs, and basically all it does is hold your battery still in order for when you're driving around and you hit the switch or something like that, that the batteries don't go flopping out everywhere. If they don't have any, you know, you do need to have them. So another thing to check is to see whether or not the frame has been dragged. When a lot of the times, you know, when you've got a car that sits really low, it'll drag the frame. Well, some guys like to roll around dragging the frame in order to cause sparks while they're driving down the street. That's not a good idea when it comes to these lowriders. The more you drag them, the more the frame becomes weak and it will snap. So you need to crawl up underneath there, maybe not completely get up underneath there, but lift the car, look up underneath there, look at the frame, look at it, and look to see if anything has been dragged. Okay, so another thing to check up front is where the upper A-arms are connected to the frame. If you've got a car that does hit some inches, you want to have that stuff reinforced. This was supposed to be somewhat of a lay-in play, but my son seems to like to hit the switch a whole lot. So we're going to end up taking all this apart and reinforcing the whole front end of this as well. But just to show you what to look for, here's what to look for. So where this connects, your factory welds are right here, and you've got some other factory welds up underneath here that connect where the arm connects to the frame. You want to look at those welds. You want to look at the welds that are right in here and all right in here. You want to basically all the way up to the front. If any of it has started to separate, it means that it's got frame damage, and you want to get that corrected if you choose to buy the car. In addition to that, you want to look at where the hole was cut. Was it butchered, as in, and of course it's kind of hard to see. You can kind of see it. Was it cut with a hole saw? Was it cut with by a 5-year-old with a cutting wheel and just looks like it was butchered? The next thing is to look for your door gaps. See if they're even. If this car was a factory car and it has not been painted or anything like that, these gaps still should be pretty close to correct. If the car has been hopped and three-wheeled a lot, these will start to separate and cause gaps each way. So look at that. That will help you kind of determine if the car has been twisted and messed with a lot. Okay, so another thing to watch for is the response. If the vehicle already has hydraulics on it, it should sound something like this. Okay, go ahead and dump it. Okay, so it should be something like that. So basically your older pumps may be a little bit slower, and the setups may be a little bit slower, but the general way that it should lift is something like that. If it's lifting really slow or kind of grinding, it can be a lot of different indications. It could be weak batteries, low batteries, old pump heads. It could be so many different things. But just kind of keep an eye on stuff like that. If it's not lifting correctly when you're first looking at something to go and purchase it, then chances are something is wrong. If somebody's trying to sell you something, the hydraulics should be working properly to begin with. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to tell you is, as far as the bridge that's in the back, if there is a bridge that was put in the back, if you notice that that bridge has started to do this, that's bad. It means that the bridge wasn't strong enough, or the correct metal wasn't used. It could be any number of things. If it was bridged and then chained for 3-wheel, and the chains have been on there for so long that it started to pull the bridge down, it means the bridge probably needs to be redone. Not a terribly hard thing to do, but if you don't know what you're doing, you know, it can be time consuming, and it can be an absolute pain. So that's one of the last things to do. So I hope you found this video informative and useful, and when you're looking for a new lowrider, make sure that you subscribe, like and share the videos. You'll follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and the Facebook page, Tennessee on Hydraulics.